To start with, I will just basically have the panelists present themselves. So.
Hello everyone, I'm back again. Sorry, not sorry. My name is Storm. As a reminder, I am with Cranfield University's apprenticeship programme at their Milton Keynes campus. In particular, my previous role was Head of Learning and Development at the National Museum of Computing.
Brilliant. Hello, hi, I'm James Gardner. So I'm an Associate Professor in Marketing and Management at University of East Anglia in Norwich Business School. I'm Employability, Placements and Enterprise Director. So I look after really the professional developments of our undergrad, postgrad and MBA students, and so really passionate about finding out how AI can help me to engage with our 2,000 odd students.
Hi, I'm Chris Baker. I work for Norfolk County Council. I'm an innovation manager, so what that means is I get to play with all the nice, shiny new toys, have a look at processes that we have, look at automation, and basically throw everything up in the air and try and train people in how to use it. And I really kind of enjoy it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I know. Quite sharp with that.
Hi, me again. As a reminder, I'm Thomas Panton. I'm a two-time venture-backed startup founder. I worked in Greenpeace, the world's largest independent environmental organisation, for over half a decade in campaigns, policy, and fundraising. And now I mentor climate tech startups and tech startups more widely across deep tech, including AI. And I'm also starting a third project, but I can't talk too much about that. So.
So hi, I'm Paul Kitley. I'm the founder of Tech Partners, which is a recruitment company. We started in Norwich 10 years ago, originally to provide tech talent to Norfolk and local-based companies. We've grown since then, so we've got offices around the country, and we operate across the UK, Europe and America. So we've done loads with some big companies, but also worked with over 200 venture-backed startups, including we built the engineering team for Anchor, which is the fastest company in European history to go from Series A to Series B. I'm also working with a number of AI startups at the moment across Europe, so do a little bit in the space.
Thank you very much. So I think that I will start with a question and then we can probably all answer in turn and then we will see where it goes. The first one that I think it is probably the most important. We've seen it today, I think, over the course of all the talks. How do we ensure that humans remain at the center of decision making when AI systems become pervasive in our workflows? And I'll probably add in our life on this, because I think it is equally important. But how do we ensure that we as humans remain in the loop? So it's not the AI taking a decision, but the AI is giving us the information to take a more informed decision. What is the way you think that we can ensure this? You can start.
I think that as people become more proficient with this type of technology and they are engaging with it more, they will naturally take more ownership of it as well. So my hope is that by increasing the number of people who are using the technology will actually help ensure that it remains human-centered.
Interesting. No, it's a good question. I think partly it's about fear of the unknown. I think we naturally avoid an element that we're scared of, that we don't understand. So being an educator, I feel it's primarily about the education of those individuals. Just as Storm said, it's giving people the ability and the confidence. And I know, especially for our young individuals who we think are super tech savvy, actually, they're very much users as in a passive sense, rather than active creators of new content and active creators of new, and we just see some of the amazing opportunities that AI actually gives. So I think when you're using and manipulating it to support and help others, that really keeps humans at the center of it, rather than, let's say, machines as the end recipient.
Yeah.
I think in the roles that we have within the council, so for example, adults and children's social services, we're meeting people at the worst points in their lives, where they desperately need help, and I don't think AI can really cover that. So for the last year and a half, we've been working with Copilot to be able to remove the admin burden instead. So to be able to take the conversations that real humans are having with these individuals going through the worst circumstances that they've ever had in their lives, and then being able to write them up afterwards. And it is that human interaction, it's that human in the loop at the end that is always looking through that to make sure it's a fair representative of the conversation. But not only that, their observations as well, because while we might get a nice transcript about what somebody is saying, they might be behaving erratically, they might be behaving differently, picking up on physical cues, the emotional cues that AI is just not able to deal with. So it's always having that human in the loop to double check that that conversation is reflective of what's had, because in 7 years' time, when that person may take us to court because they feel they didn't get the right kind of service, we want to be able to have a fair representation of exactly what that conversation was. And it's only the person who was in the room that had that and has that experience will be able to have it.
I think that we will be challenged too.
Yeah.
I think that we're already seeing sort of signifiers that we're moving towards more sort of self-taught AI models that can then generate, so generative AI basically. I think we're moving more, further and further and closer. Still a bit of a way off that, but we'll get there. I have no doubt about that. Interestingly, I think it will rely on two things. One is regulation, but I don't hold my breath for that, particularly with current governments around the world swinging further and further to the types of people who just don't care or don't know, or both. And I think that the other one is startups. So interestingly, Sam Altman invested into a company, I think they're called Tools for Humanity. And one of their lead products is something called the Orb. And the Orb is something which scans the retina of a human eye for KYC and AML. So it allows us to verify that you are human versus robot or AI, which at the moment, not hugely needed, but getting there. In the future, I think probably the only thing that will be able to keep humans relevant in the face of AI in a number of ways. Not to sound too super dystopian there, but yeah. I don't think that humans will necessarily always need to be or able to be at the center of an AI thing.
I think there's always going to be a human-centric nature to it. If you think commercially why companies build AI products, it is for us. And I think if you take us out of it, you know, what's the point? I might as well go home now. That's how they generate their revenue. I think the controls need to be in place with inputs and outputs. So I guess the AI is only as good as the inputs going into it. And obviously the outputs need to be monitored, because if the inputs aren't good, then it chucks out stuff that shouldn't be out. So I don't think we can be taken away from it. I think it's natural to be scared of it, but I think it's built for us.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very interesting what, Thomas, what you were saying, do we need to? Because there are two ways, human in the loop. It is something that we always need, or it is something that we will always be able to. I think that there is probably, I don't know, what do you think? I think there is a legitimate question in terms of, do we always, or we think will we always be needed to be in the loop? There will be cases probably where we don't. I mean, if I'm talking about, for example, assisting people and stuff like that, probably yes. Or as I was showing before today that ChatGPT now it is open to the US government. So, as a public staff, and you don't want AI to take decisions without a human in the loop. But I think that there will be there will be cases where actually we don't need to have a human in the loop. What about that?
I think one of my favorite examples is this AI generated music. And then there was a bot that was created to view that music video over and over and over again. And it generated a ridiculous amount of income. Now, there is no human in that loop. Humans were not listening to that music, but it did obviously generate capital for a human. So I think that AI is created by humans, for humans, whatever that looks like. And yes, there will absolutely potentially be certain spaces where we're trying to avoid that human input. We're trying to streamline that process. Humans as a society, as a nation, as a species are naturally lazy, but it's about looking at AI as the travelator. Do we use it to be lazy and stand still and let it carry us through? Or is it a go faster machine? And that for me is the difference. If it's about letting it carry us, no human in the loop. If it's about going faster, yes, humans.
I think that's in its current form, yeah. I definitely agree. I think that whilst AI can't think for itself, for lack of a better term, then absolutely there's a thought like created by humans and the outcome is for humans to make more money as humans. But I think we enter really complicated future regulation and ethics conversations about human rights of AI. If you think about a world where we've got generative AI, which can think for itself, make decisions, come up with startup ideas, create music which isn't based off of other music, but can just create and innovate, then you've got to start thinking about, okay, what are the applications of that? Okay, there's a startup in America called Figure AI. They're creating these robot-like humanoids, which now have only recently had the ability to integrate OpenAI's LLMs into its model, so it can interact, talk, engage in exactly the same way that the most comprehensive OpenAI LLMs can. Imagine if that gets to generative AI, then those Figure AI humanoid robots can then think for themselves and they can make decisions on their own. And then do they have human rights? Well, they should, right? Because they are able to make decisions and live within a human society. So therefore they get human rights. Then they can make money. All of these questions open up once you get to the future of what AI looks like. So I think, yes, for now, of course, it's human run. It's for humans. We aren't at risk of being overtaken by that. But I think that it would be incredibly short-sighted for humans to not estimate a certain amount of risk when it comes to the future of that. And I mean purely from the agency of AI. I can make a decision as Thomas, but Thomas AI can also make a decision which is different from me, whose decision is right if it was generated out of thin air. It's a difficult question to answer.
Philosophically speaking, though, Star Trek's been covering that for ages.
I mean, yeah, you've got, films have been talking about this for ages. It's been sci-fi for ages. I think 90% of the population thought that AI wasn't something we'd see, even though, yes, it's been used for, as in your presentation, for many decades in lots of forms. Most people don't know that. So we see sci-fi films about what could it get to, but that's based on the infancy of real AI. And now we're starting to see the adolescence of AI. So what does the adulthood of AI look like? And I think we really need to gauge those questions.
Yeah, James.
I think one of the questions really here to ask is who's really responsible for keeping it human-centered? I mean, ultimately it's us. AI is not going to decide one day, I think we're going to actually center all of our aims, goals, all our energy on just supporting ourselves. But the problem is, Storm said, how lazy do we want to be, or how greedy do we want to be? Because it's a hell of a lot easier to get AI to do a lot of stuff. So it's really down to humans and the wonderful individuals in this room and across the whole planet to ensure that AI is human focused and not sort of machine focused or other. Now, I have pretty much no hope that humanity will actually fight against this continuously, but there'll be pockets of it. But yeah, I think it's down to us to ensure that everybody in this room is creating content, creating code, to really ensure that as much as possible, and to really value what's wonderful about humans: empathy, support, passion, love, creativity, innovation in its purest form, randomness. I love the randomness of humans, of individuals, and I think it's us really valuing those. And I teach management. There's going to be more managers in the future. All the Chartered Management Institute shows there's going to be more managers in the future. And why? Because actually we've realised finally that we can't get rid of managers. We need to manage individuals and teams and support them individually. Now, AI can ask you a question, say how you're doing. And I think one of our guests, I think John Carlos, said we don't need to say thank you to AI. I do say a thank you to Alexa sometimes. Does anybody else say thank you to Alexa?
I would definitely say thank you to
AI. Say thank you to Alexa. I sometimes say thank you to Claude or ChatGPT. And I'm just polite, I say thank you to my dog, which just comes and says hi. But I think it's important that we focus on the positive, wonderful uniqueness of individuals. And then we will make sure that we don't lose that to sort of the great Star Trek future of AI.
Yeah, interesting. I think connected to this, is, so what are the skills or the mindsets that we should cultivate to stay resilient in an AI-driven world? Because I think that is quite connected. Paul, start from you.
I think the emotional intelligence part's really key. There's lots of things that AI can't do. A lot of conversations, especially in business or personally, whatever, a lot of our interactions are what people are saying when they're not saying something, and if AI can pick that up. And I think the creative aspect as well. I think if we lose our creativity, I know we'll probably talk about those sorts of things further down the discussion, but especially in schools, we need to encourage that, because without that, we can't create new stuff like we created AI. You know, what's next and the next phases of AI without our creativity and our thinking outside the box and that emotional intelligence. I don't think we can keep progressing.
Yeah, Storm.
I think curiosity is going to be key. If we are relying on AI systems or technology in general to do all of the boring stuff for us, then what is the point in human life? And somebody else mentioned it earlier. I mean, why do we get up in the morning? If we are using this technology to eliminate and algorithmic efficiency our lives in that way, then what is our purpose? And that for me is really key. How can we encourage people who are growing into our digital society today, our digital natives, people who have grown up with phones? How do we encourage them to find their own purpose and meaning in life?
I think, sorry, go.
I was just following on from that, actually. Yeah, the boring nature of work, actually, can sometimes be beneficial. 20% of innovations within organisations actually come from the R&D team, or less. The majority of innovations within organisations comes from everybody else, your suppliers, your customers, the people who are front-facing your customers. Take those individuals out. Will AI be able to come up with the new innovations? It might. Will they be also beneficial to the individuals working in the company, or just the profit margins? Again, I think that's the challenge. I think it is to focus on those skills that are quite unique to individuals, really, and that emotional resilience, that support of individuals. When I was saying about thanking ChatGPT or Alexa, we could get AI to thank us every day and say, you've done an amazing job. It could start up in the morning saying, James, you've got this, you're amazing. At the end of the day, say, you've been so productive, you have done everything you need to do. I think that would be pretty much meaningless. I don't know if anybody would find that actually of meaning. But my colleague comes in and says, thanks for getting me a coffee. Or a student coming in saying, I really appreciate your support on the dissertation. That really means something. And I think that's something that AI probably can't do, unless anybody disagrees.
Well, imagine you had a figure AI robot which made you coffee in the morning, and you said
that would be great. That would be
then
great.
It was like, oh, no worries, man, it's all good.
I'd say thank you.
And then you say thank you, and then you'd feel good for it, wouldn't you? No, I think just a couple of things. One is that I'd mentioned in my talk earlier that I'm a bit of a utopian thinker, in that actually, despite sounding very dystopian, I believe that AI actually would, in theory, lead to really huge benefits for us as humans to follow creative endeavours, hobbies, interests, but it relies on so many variables. Governments implementing UBI, universal basic income, various different high tax rates on companies which are basically removing human salaries and just having robots do everything, so that then there's only top level management making loads of money. Then you need high tax to bring that back into the economy to then feed us as individuals who don't need the jobs anymore. That's a very utopian way of thinking, and ideologically that's where I sit. But I think, to answer your question, what skills are needed from humans, to keep the human element, go and learn how to make shelter, filter water, find and hunt and forage for food. I'm just kidding. But I do think there's an aspect of learning the human things which, you know, we've kept for centuries and centuries and millennia. And I think that if we can just tap into human nature, that's different, because AI, even if it did get to all the things I mentioned before, it's not human. It's a different strand of humanity, a different strand of species, and that's fine. Like, new species come and go all the time, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. We just need to learn how to work with that. And I think that AI itself, if it did reach generative AI properly, which I think it will, then that's just a new species which we need to learn to live with. And we also probably need to stop thinking ourselves as like the top of the food chain and part of the web of other species.
Yeah, Chris?
I mean, at the moment, we desperately need to bring people's digital skills up. I mean, that stat that you put up, Storm, in regards to people being digitally excluded, if you take into account social workers, that is a very low number. I mean, they did not go into social work to use their computer and write up their assessments. They went in there for that human interaction. So we need to bring these people with us. We need to digitally upskill them. And that is going to be incredibly labour intensive at the moment, because you can't chuck a PDF at them and suddenly expect them to understand the benefits of artificial intelligence. You need to work with them. You need to understand their fears and bring them on that journey with you. And if we don't, we're not going to see any adoption. We're not going to see any benefit in those areas.
You could use Google's Notebook, and then make it into a podcast. And then
Funnily enough, I have done that. They did find it funny. They didn't like the accents. They want to know when the Norfolk one's coming.
Paul, what's your take on?
Yeah, I mean,
You agree on all of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You think? I would like to try to just go a bit on into something that is very close to my heart in terms of education. You know, when I do my workshop presentations, I didn't do today, and there was the World Economic. Someone mentioned the World Economic. You mentioned the World Economic Forum, the latest, the report of January 2025. Very interesting. How do we change the education system to make the new generations ready for this? Because we might all think, and it's surely I was one of those, thinking that the teenagers nowadays, they are the ones that know how to use AI. But when I talked to my social media manager, that she's 21, she told me, oh no, it's your generation that talks about AI. We don't care. For us, it's just a tool. When we will use it, we will use it. They just have no interest into understanding it. And so they don't know how. And I think that is a big problem, and probably all falls in education, because if people don't know what AI is and how it works, how can we then be sure that they're using it in a correct way? For example, they know what it means hallucination. They know when they can trust it and when they cannot. But education is very difficult to change. And I think it is probably, I always say that the World Economic Forum that was saying about the universal income, they were saying the two main obstacles to AI for the futures are businesses spending money in upskilling and governments spending money in education. There are two quite big obstacles to go over. So I'm not interested much into the businesses, but what do we do about education? How we can change it?
I think we need to think about it in the same way as financial literacy, for example. Lots of people aren't necessarily thinking about how they can become financially literate, learning how banking works or learning how their money and their tax works. No one is, particularly no Gen Z or even millennial, is really caring about going and learning that until it hits them and they start realizing where their tax goes and what it's being spent on, etc. And then they want to start learning. So I think in the same way that we have developed apps, courses, personal interactions, engagement, school engagement, lessons, courses in unis, for those sorts of things, I think that we need to think about it in the same sort of way. In the same way that how do you get a user to use your consumer app over a different consumer app which does something very similar? I think we need to think about ways in which we can get people to engage with AI and AI learning rather than doing something else, for example. And that comes down to consumer marketing at the end of the day, which as much as many investors are very risk averse to consumer apps, I think that, the person who can create an extremely highly engaged AI learning app will hit the nail on the head and hit gold dust probably. So
And get it on Love Island at the same time. Or get some influencers
I
involved.
see what you're saying. I was so confused what the reference. Oh yeah. I mean, get it in front of the right people. I mean, it's just it's consumer marketing.
Yeah, James?
So I'm building a short course for my undergraduate and postgraduate students at the moment, and speaking to a colleague Piers just in the break, and speaking to a number of different organisations that use AI to train. I think it's about, rather than telling students they need to become interested in AI, because maybe they're not, understanding what they are interested in, what they are really passionate about, and helping them to use AI in a creative way to upskill themselves, learn new skills, to master something. So most of our students want to be leaders and managers in some form or another, maybe a marketing professional, accounting, finance. How do they get those jobs? So an easy way is we teach them how to use AI to be able to upskill themselves, so they're more likely to be able to get those jobs and careers. As a future leader and manager, you're going to have difficult conversations. How do I train 200 students to have a difficult conversation with a fellow member of their team or something like that? AI could do that. I can create a simulation which asks them questions and prompts and takes them through that whole process. So rather than saying just use this tool, you should say you can use this tool. You can create an opportunity to use this tool that will help you, and then you can actually take that to your organisation. You've got a skill that's quite unique. I think that might work better than just saying go on a sort of LinkedIn course.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Storm?
I have so much to say on this one. I'm going to try and keep it brief. I mean, Obviously, you know my views. One of the biggest barriers for me is the lack of subject matter experts. It is access to humans to support that educational journey. The second factor is issues around engagement. Traditional classroom methods are not effective. It is not current pedagogy in any way, shape, or form, and yet we are still seeing those within schools. They've never been effective. But we're seeing it more now as well because different forms of multimedia exist that didn't before. And I think the attitude in schools has always been, well, it's worked for the last 200 years. Why on earth would we change it now? And I think that's holding everybody back. So for me, the potential in AI is specifically around personalizing that learning journey for individuals to build engagement. And even Gen AI, you know, building these immersive experiences that can truly engage a student and encourage them to explore the potential of that technology in their own unique area of interest.
Yeah, just say one thing. Primary schools are using it, starting to use it already. They're building simulations, giving the information, let's say, about let's say a country, and actually asking it to respond to students' questions and ask students questions back in a language that would be appropriate for an 8 or 9 year old. And I mean, it's not being massively used, but it is actually working. And then you get that individualised conversation at the level of the child or of the young person, which I think is really important.
Yeah. Paul? Yeah.
So I've got to put my dad hat on. I've got 3 kids all at school. So I think about this quite a bit. I think AI is as important as learning subjects like geography, in my opinion. I think if you were to freeze yourself and wake up in 10 years' time and you didn't know how to use AI, where would you be in terms of life, working? Think where it is now, where's it going to be in 10 years' time? I think some of the children's schools, they are 10 years away from going out to work. So I think it's critically important that they have to be taught these skills. But I also think they also need to learn to think for themselves too. So I think there needs to be a separation, and I think where they are using AI, I think they should be using it in a way which is relevant, where they're referencing, saying, I used AI here, I used AI there, and using it as well as their own thinking. So I think it needs some thought put into it, but I think it should be part of the curriculum.
Chris?
I agree, it should definitely be part of the curriculum, but I mean, we've got a kind of stretched school system as it is at the moment, with so much being added into it and so many different pulls from like a central government perspective, where we've got to focus on science, we've got to focus on maths, we've got to focus on this, we've got to do their school lunches, we've got to make sure that they're well looked after and they're bringing their lunches in. You know, teachers are just being pulled left, right and centre, so it actually probably needs to come from outside, like having that outside app that can be used, and from parents and engaging parents as well, and getting them to teach the kids, you know, this is artificial intelligence. When you're talking to Alexa and getting your favourite music on, this is artificial intelligence being used. We try and do it in a much spreading form of training, because obviously when we have a younger generation coming into the Norfolk County Council, they predominantly have never used a PC before. They've been using their tablets or their apps or anything along those lines. So we've started to try and develop our training to apply to that generation. So we have short videos of exactly how to do things, but we have the written guidance that people can use. We have the personal interaction where they can ask questions of digital champions, that kind of thing. So yeah, we just kind of throw everything at it and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the problem with the system is quite important. As I said, it's already quite stretched and underfunded. And I think that is a big problem in terms of how do then you include this as well. But yes, so I think you wanted to say...
Use AI.
AI teachers.
Yeah, but
Ask AI, yeah.
for the system?
Across the UK, different areas are absolutely responding to this challenge in different ways. In Scotland, for example, every single child has a device. As soon as they go to school, every child is given a device. In Wales, they are facing huge challenges. They've actually just reduced the grade boundaries for GCSEs because they don't have enough qualified staff to deliver it, and they don't want the children to be negatively impacted by that by having lower grades, so they've just reduced the grade boundaries. Here in England, we are specifically looking at the curriculum itself. So there is a new GCSE coming out in digital literacy in particular. They've just approved a GCSE in creative digital technologies as well, which is going to be super exciting. And it's all well and good, but we don't actually have the resource to deliver it. And that is my concern. So for me, system change has to be community driven. We're going to need to go from a global one size fits all to, okay, what resources do we have locally? How can we support local schools? And actually, those are going to be the children that you are employing in the future, potentially as well. So asking communities to invest in education themselves, providing education for parents on how to best support their children in these spaces as well. But the problem is those who are going to take up those offers are the ones who don't need the support, and the ones who really need the support aren't going to engage with it at all. Yeah. So I
If
can't
everyone's
answer
got the
it.
answer,
Please.
I have got an answer. I have. So I should declare that I am the principal at East Norfolk Sixth Form College. I have teenagers here. I brought some students from the sixth form with me. The answer is to abandon league tables. Because all of the schools, whether it's primary, whether it's high school, we're all being told to compete with each other, which is actually not helpful. We're in Great Yarmouth, so we do have problems with digital connections. We have lots of issues around the speed of our network. I've got my IT manager here. We're just trying to upgrade and put everything in. So we are all there. We want to do it. We are getting our staff to use ChatGPT. We're telling the students to use ChatGPT. But actually, we need a lot of investment in our infrastructure. We can't do this without help. So if everybody can petition to say, abandon league tables in high schools, please stop making 40% of young people fail their English and Maths GCSEs every year. Because actually, if we abandon that, those two things alone would give us the room at every level of education to be able to bring this in. That is all we need to do. So please petition on our behalf, hate league tables and change GCSEs. It would be the answer.
Brilliant. We are starting to warm up. So before I just want to start talking with the audience, I just have one last question. So this one is very quick for each of you. If you had to name one factor that can make or break your adaptation to AI, so your AI student, what that would be? Only one, and why? So what would be your deal breaker? If you had to name one factor that can make or break your AI adoption, what that would be, the most important one? First, Storm, yeah, from you.
The first one in the line, I'm sorry.
Well, if you don't have an answer, we can just answer it.
For me, it is trust and having a safe space to fail. I think as we've connected to this digital society, not only do we access all of those things, but we have these bad actors that can exploit that network connection as well. And there's a lot of mistrust there. So I think for me, it would absolutely be having a safe space to explore these options and opportunities.
Yeah.
Totally trust. Yeah, without a doubt. Trust and authenticity, and I think that's the challenge really we're going to face.
training, and some more training. We need to increase people's digital skills and understanding of the capabilities of AI, the benefits of AI, and bring them on that journey. And the only way to keep people engaged is to give them that support.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Come on, Thomas. I can see you are there.
I don't know. A make or break to make me use AI.
Yes, is there something that will say, for example,
If there
tell
was
you
something that would stop me.
exactly? For example, because you're already adopting it, like myself. Maybe for us, it's more about what would make you stop using it.
To be honest, mate, all the things that ideologically would stop me from using AI already happen. So it's
Fair enough.
kind of like there is no such thing as data protection. So stop pretending that we have it.
Yeah, I do agree with
Councils
that.
And governments will tell you that your data is protected. Forget it. Governments, American, CIA, they look at your data.
I do agree on that.
Like, don't worry about it. Don't do anything bad. I've spent my career campaigning to regulate these things.
Yeah.
And big tech companies.
No, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. No. I totally agree on that.
So for me, the make or break is I really think that we need to stop being naive. AI will really cook us if we don't like just take a minute and stop being naive and thinking that it won't. Like, let's just, yeah, I think I want people to just be more long-term thinking. AI will reach generative AI. Stop thinking that it won't, and then we can maybe see things. And if that doesn't happen, then I throw my hands up and despair.
Fair enough.
Sorry, everyone. I don't know what happened today. I've gone world dystopia.
My information governance officer is literally spinning now. We've got a new power source. If he's watching this, it's fine. Okay, the data's all right.
Sorry, GDPR. I promise that all my companies are data secure.
Paul? I want to go down a more light-hearted route. So I've got one of my best friends, so he's best man at my wedding, so he's really into his gadgets, and he's got a robot Hoover that basically goes round, and a mop. This isn't about him, but it's a similar story. So I read an article which basically reminded me of him, so I read it. And there's a couple in America who have one of these Hoovers, and programmed it to start at 1:30 in the morning whilst they were asleep in their nice house in America. So it's obviously programmed not to hit furniture and various other things and clear up mess. So they got a new puppy. Obviously, during the night, they couldn't let this puppy out. So puppies do what puppies do, and it went to the toilet on the carpet, and the robot wasn't programmed to identify what this was, so it tried to hoover it up. So you can imagine the mess it made. And where I'm going with this is, I think the break part for me is overuse, and I think, we still need to be humans and do things that, just buy a Hoover, like just this part of what we do. So I think it's the overuse part is what I'm trying to get at. Really is, I think that's the break point for me. Is there going to be a world where we're just lying there with everything done for us? So,
Wall-E.
yeah.
Covered in feces.
I think we'll have too much. Yeah.
Dog feces.
I think the world's gone mad if we go that far.
So, Jim, you want to add something?
Just think about what would stop us using it. I think actually speaking about the schools, it's actually connectivity and sort of speed of connectivity. I was just thinking about do we need to train people to use AI? Did anybody get training about how to use a mobile phone? And that's the thing. It's because they were specifically designed to be really easily used. So I think it needs to be AI that needs to be.
You haven't met my social workers.
But I think they could use phones. They could use iPhones.
He didn't say that publicly.
There's still new Nokia 3310s.
Oh, lovely.
They last forever. Right?
Exactly, they last forever.
That's why they're still using it.
Exactly, this is why they're still using them.
How do I hotspot this? No.
This is why I meant to kick you to stop you talking about NCC.
This may be my opinions and not those of my authority.
Right. We have around 6 minutes, 7 minutes. So we have potentially a few questions from the room. So does anyone have any question regarding what we're talking? Oh, there's already one up there. So I will just probably give you my microphone and this will go around.
Good afternoon. I'm Phil McSweeney. In the last generation, I guess, we've had the arrival of a number of existential crises, and we don't always recognize them, but let me list a few. Climate change, climate-driven immigration or population movement, war-driven population movement, obesity, mental health. All of these things are kind of just weighing on us. Not all of us, all of the time, perhaps not while we're in here, but we'll go out and, something will remind us that all is not good in the world. And then we've got AI as just kind of more recently just arrived. And some people are saying, is this another layer of existential crisis, or have we got control of it? And I think we probably need to recognize that AI is being largely driven by companies that want to be more competitive over other companies and don't care too much about all these existential crises that are weighing on humans and the rest of the world and so on. So my worry is, and I guess the question is here really, is are we at risk of creating a few haves and a lot more have-lesses in the world? And how can we harness AI to do something about that? And can governments do anything about that? Because they're not showing great performance in this place. I mean, there was something on LinkedIn yesterday that was a bit of a parody about DeepSeek, which is the European answer to it, which is called Deep Sleep. So it's my worry is how can we help humans adapt to a world in which AI is doing what it does, but is not actually doing much for large chunks of the population?
Can I?
Yes.
Hi, Phil. I think the simple answer is that with any of these crises, it's never been a unified attempt to stop it. You know, like even when you think about UN pacts like the Paris Agreement for the climate crisis, you know, well, Donald Trump's just pulled out of it, so forget it, you know? And so I think like actually the hope in that is that individual companies, people who do care, they use those tools to better find the solutions. I gave loads of examples earlier of startups around the world which are using AI to massively increase the effectiveness of finding and implementing climate solutions. That's also being done with various sort of human rights stuff. There's one in America which is helping immigrants with legal documentation and then representing themselves in court to get asylum or get refugee status or whatever. AI is helping them prepare all of that rather than having to spend on expensive lawyers or not have any representation in many cases. So I think actually what tends to happen is that you find people who do care when many don't. And those are the people who solve the biggest crises, the biggest problems in the world. One caveat to that is that I think that AI embeds itself across all industries and verticals in the same way that climate change impacts all verticals and industries. The difference is that not enough people talk about the fact that climate crisis does that. So I think that we get so bogged down in new crises that we kind of almost forget that we've got other ones to deal with at the same time. So that's my one caveat, is I think that individual companies, they provide the hope and the solutions that you're looking for. But I think that there is a wider conversation for us to have, that we don't forget that these other things exist and they are also being solved or need solving, because otherwise we just let them continue. Just one last point on that is AI is deeply connected, as with many other things, to climate change, but also to all of the crises you mentioned. You know, AI was used by Israel to identify Palestinians that it wanted to target during the most recent genocide in Gaza, and yet that doesn't get talked about. So AI can be used in terrible ways, and it's about finding the pockets of hope for people who are using it in the best ways to solve the worst problems, in my opinion.
I was just going to say, I think they're the ones we need to be investing in. Ultimately, the problem is that there are awful people in the world, and they're the ones who are using any of these technologies, other people, and it's about a lack of care and something deeper than that as well. And the problem we have is that we can't identify those. So we are constantly in a state of, can we trust this person? Can we not? But it is about these bad actors within the globe as a whole. And all we can really do is focus on our little piece of it and what we choose to do with technology and who we choose to invest in.
Right, there's time for another question.
Hi, my name's Stuart. I work with Paul at Tech Partners.
I think obviously when we look at AI, the focus is quite heavily on, I guess, efficiency. By the very nature of it, how it's made, it's obviously software-led and very analytical. Do you think there are any other, I guess, key areas which may be overlooked that are equally as important as, I guess, overlooked in the pursuit of efficiency and streamlining process?
Like one of you guys, maybe James or Chris.
Yeah, I think efficiency, but maybe probably focus more on effectiveness, really, what to say and how to say it really well. I think as talking about this as training development, what about if you've got a new student just started a new job? How do they not save time, but how are they more effective within their job, within their communications, within their emails, within their care, within their support? I think that's an area that could be focused on. To guide people in the right decisions. Also, psychologists in NHS are looking at helping individuals with mental health issues and using AI to be able to give them some support before they actually get to see a consultant. And again, that's an area. It's not necessarily efficiency and effectiveness. It's not trying to save time because they're still going to get the support that they need. It's just trying to take something, giving them something earlier than they would normally, an intervention that they would normally get if they waited on a waiting list, really.
Right, just one last question, and Chris, you can answer that. No pressure.
Hi panel, my name is Chris, I'm from East Suffolk Council. It was just in regards to, I mean, I'm hoping that AI is a real force for good, but certainly with your talk earlier, Thomas, you were talking about how it can solve so many complex computational problems, even at an existential level, that as a human we're never going to get close to. But my question is, how do we trust the results that AI produces? If we can't solve those problems, how do we know those results are correct? And can we trust them entirely?
Yeah, test and learn. I mean, I'm an innovation manager. Give it a go, press the button, see if it goes bang. And if you're still there,
okay,
it worked, right? No?
Interestingly, I think this is where humans absolutely still have to be part of the process. There's been this huge global pushback on academics and experts, and this anti-expert opinion, which was largely sort of coined by the last Donald Trump administration and which was unhelpfully pushed by the last Tory administration here, and spread across Europe. And I think that actually what's really even more fascinating than it's ever been is that they're probably the most important people in the deployment of AI now, because once we deploy AI and AI gets ever more powerful and replaces more and more manual or sort of menial roles in that, then the only thing that is ever needed from an expert is an expert opinion, or a person is an expert opinion, which means that these academics, these researchers, these people who dedicate their entire lives to understanding what an outcome should look like, the highest level of confidence in science is theory. There is no fact. And that will be the same with any AI model. It's always going to be theory. So,
but could we keep pace with the AI?
But we can keep pace with what we expect outcomes to look like. If it's so wildly outrageously wrong, then of course we shouldn't ignore it because there's a reason why it's pushed that outcome out. And that's when we start to dig in. The question you have to consider with research like this is that everything is peer reviewed. This is one of the big problems that I had during the whole COVID thing, was that everyone was pushing back against vaccinations being released. And it's you do understand that these things are being tested millions of times as quickly as possible to make sure that you're getting the best solution possible in the quickest amount of time. With any science research, that happens. So if we can get to multiple outcomes exponentially quicker, then we've got so many more outcomes to test to find the correct theory. And I think that's where humans are relevant, but it's also where we don't have to worry that it's necessarily wrong, because humans are wrong as well sometimes. So it's actually just making sure we've got enough of those use cases, enough of those tests to go, this is being repeated 1,000, 100,000 times, this is probably right, which is exactly what we would do anyway, but we're doing it in a second rather than doing it in 10 years. You know, it's really exciting. It's really exciting.
I mean, you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, aren't you? You got to test it, I think, and I agree with Tom. You've got to get the use cases to trial and find out what works. I think that's the only way.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys think it's good, then I'm sold. Thank you.
We're not responsible for it.
Right, okay, I think that we are all done.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for being here and obviously for your questions. And we will just now have the Disrupt event. Bill, are we going to have a break now or we are not? Sorry? Oh, right. Even better. Not like that. Thank you very much. And thank you to the